Texas A&M at South Carolina. Texas A&M, the only remaining undefeated team in the SEC, will travel to South Carolina. I played South Carolina plus 3.5. I
Yep.
need 3 to play it now. For what it's worth, South Carolina 12-5-1 against the spread at home against top 10 opponents since 2005, covering by about a touchdown per game. That includes 7 outright victories as either an underdog or small favorite. This to me, Elko hasn't named who's going to start. I would assume it's Marcel Reed, but he's I think smartly leaving that,
Yep.
not naming the starter, and then South Carolina has to prepare for both. But situationally, Texas A&M off the huge win against LSU in which they caught the Tigers by surprise, weren't prepared for Marcel Reed. South Carolina off of a bye. I think that's important because that means Lenore Sellers will be healthy. They were dealing with some bumps and bruises, and Sellers just didn't have the same running ability pre-bye. I think he'll be healthier and provide a bit more juice there. I am a bit worried about South Carolina gives up a ton of tackles for loss. Texas A&M eats in that department. It's not going to be easy for the South Carolina offense, but Texas A&M has been giving up a lot of explosives on the ground through the air. I think South Carolina can hit enough. I think their defensive line, assuming it's going to be Reed, if it's Wegman, like if it's you can't throw on South Carolina. Their pressure is too good. Their secondary is too good. So I don't trust Wegman to throw on them. If it's Reed, I do worry a bit about just Moss and the power run game for Texas A&M. It's a very aggressive South Carolina defense, and you can run on them a bit. But South Carolina is good against running quarterbacks.
Very much.
And then you can load the box here and make Reed beat you. And I don't think he can through the air. He's just not. He just doesn't read defense as well. Not a polished passer right now. I mean, he can throw a deep ball, but and here's the thing: if you look at Texas A&M, I mean, and by the way, South Carolina, these two teams, if like you change a couple plays with South Carolina, or a couple penalties, change a couple penalties. South Carolina should have beat LSU at home. Blew that 17-point lead. They got bogus call after bogus call. They could have beat Alabama. They arguably should have. They had missed field goals, all kinds of turnovers. So they easily could be 4-1 in league play. Like in this game would be huge, and they'd be in contention in the SEC. They'd have a pair of wins over Alabama and LSU. Instead, they lost by 2 and 3. And then Texas A&M, they're ranked inside the top 10. And if you look at it, they've benefited from the element of surprise at quarterback, which they won't have here. When they played Florida didn't really know much about Reed. Reed looked good. When he came in against LSU was prepared. But how about against Arkansas? Arkansas, ready for it. How about against Bowling Green? Ready for it. And arguably, those two teams, I mean, those are 2 one-possession wins. They could have won those games. So, I don't have a ton. I have Texas A&M power rated above South Carolina, but it's not a huge margin. So I can't get to a field goal or more here, especially when you consider the spot. South Carolina's just been unlucky, and they'll be healthier here after the bye, extra time to prepare. And if you just look from a pure net yards per play perspective, remove garbage time and only against FBS opponents, Texas A&M's 53rd plus 0.3 net yards per play. South Carolina is 58 plus 0.24. And by the way, South Carolina's played the tougher schedule, played a top 3, one of the 3 hardest schedules in the country to date. And the other point I want to bring up here, Texas A&M has not played a dominant defense since Notre Dame. And in that game, they only had 250 yards at home. You know who has? South Carolina. They played 3 in their past 3 games. When I consider a dominant defense, it's a defense I have rated in the top 20. Well, South Carolina, over their past 3 games, has played Ole Miss, Oklahoma, and Alabama. Texas A&M, since that Notre Dame game, what's the best defense that they played? I mean, LSU, not a dominant defense. Mississippi State, Missouri, Arkansas,
Not Alabama.
Bowling Green. I mean, Texas A&M hasn't played Alabama. But I have Alabama as I have Alabama rated in the top 20. I mean, they're not an elite defense by any stretch. Florida, like, no. So like this is South Carolina, I do have as a top 20 defense. So this is a big step up here. Yeah, I like South Carolina at home at night. Great spot.
Yeah, right before you and I hit the recording button, the 2.5s evaporated, threes are back on the board, and now I'm interested because I missed that 4 on Sunday. I wanted South Carolina at 4. Looks like that we might get a little bit of a buyback here, a break on Thursday, but shop for definitely for the best number.
No,
I
there's a
think
three. Yeah, the threes are back. Do you want to? Do you agree on three?
I agree on 3. Yeah, let's put it on the board. I'll take 3. I didn't want that 2.5, but because the South Carolina, I mean, the offense is pretty one-dimensional. It is try to run the RPO with Lenora Sellers. If not, I'm going to try and create explosive passes. That to me is the avenue to South Carolina points here is when Lenora Sellers and that Rocket Sanders RPO offense finally gets wrangled in by the Texas A&M defensive line. There's going to be some sort of play action or some sort of guy standing 50 yards down the field for Sellers to throw it down to. 20th in EPA passing. That's going to show up here. His passing attempts to Mazeo Bennett coming out of the slot on during play action have been the bulk of the South Carolina points. I think the other side of the ball is really where you start your handicap. South Carolina's defense. Look at these mobile quarterbacks they've gone up against. South Carolina essentially ended Michael Hawkins Jr. season for OU. I don't think he's playing quarterback for the rest of the season. Jalen Milroe had 18 recorded rushing attempts and 36 yards. South Carolina recorded 9 tackles for loss on that Alabama offense. And then finally, Jackson Dart, his outside zone that he's been so successful with, he only had 8 carries for 44 yards. So South Carolina is doing a number, and you have to ask, is it going to be Connor Weigman? Can he survive a pressured pocket? South Carolina is the second best pass rush in the nation. They're the second best coverage unit in the nation. I'm not sure Connor Weigman is the fit here. What about Marcel Reed? I just said, what did they do against RPO or quarterbacks? More importantly, look what you said, Stuck, about Reed's history when defenses have a chance to plan. I think everybody that was holding an LSU ticket last week didn't have a chance to plan when Marcel Reed was going to come in and save the game. So turnovers, Sellers explosives, that's the key to this game for South Carolina. I think it's also a key to an over, but I think the scripted portion of this game, Stuck, whether it's Weigman or Marcel Reed, and whatever is going to happen with Norris Sellers and Rocket Sanders, I don't think any team's going to have success for quite a while here until we make adjustments. So I like under 21.5 in the first half. I am with you on the 3. There's a couple of 3.5s out there, so I will wait to put it in the app until we get 3.5 more widely available out there. I see 2 national books that have it, so I'll wait around a little bit to get the Gamecock number in.
Yeah, I don't mind anything under here too. I think it'll be low scoring game. Should be a good one. Hopefully, I'm hoping that Texas A&M for my college football playoff futures wins by 1. Like let's call it 21-20.